Okay, new day, new video. In this video, I need to work out what I'm doing with intercooler piping, because currently the turbo is just free spinning and the intake sort of stops there. So I need to do the pipe that goes from here to the intercooler, here to the intercooler, and from there. This side should be okay. I've moved the intercooler slightly since I've done that, but it should still fit. This side I need to modify because I've got the V-band flange off this turbo because it was made for the other turbo. So I've got to do that. I have to verify the fluid level again on the transmission because it's still not quite right. And the speedo converter box is not working. Still sort of troubleshooting what that could be. But one of the possible reasons is that I've forgotten to put the tone wheel in the diff when it was built. So need to verify that before we go any further. That's going to be fun. And what else have we got? I've got a 2-bar map sensor here now, so I'm going to put that in and recalibrate the tune to suit. And I need to also start working on the handbrake cable. Top intercooler pipe is in and connected to the bottom section now. It actually fits just as well with the intercooler lowered as it did originally. So that side's good. Other side is going to be a little bit more. I need to have it welded to suit the new V-band, and it's about 3mm shorter than it needs to be. But apart from that, it was all lining up. But what I'm thinking of doing is remaking this section, because I want it to go sort of back, so I've got room to run the air filter in here. So I might redo that part. Cutty cut time. I've just marked an oval where I need to cut. That's going to allow me to clock the compressor over a little bit. And that's going to be where the air filter actually goes through. So that's looking pretty good. I'm happy to make that cut. Okay, filter pipe is on now. Runs through here. I've cut this hole out bigger. I couldn't find my pinch weld, so I've just used a 240 door seal. I've got plenty of those spare. Like to hoard that sort of shit because it comes in handy for this sort of job. So that goes through there, and underneath we've got a big K&N filter which goes to almost the level of the front bar. So the intercooler pipe, I've got it all cut up, but it's hard to hold up 4 pieces and film. But it comes down here, around over the top of this bar, and around here back to the intercooler. So it's going to fit nicely. Headlight back in. Space is tight. We've got a few millimeters in there. I've had to modify the pins on the globe just so that the actual terminals will fit back on, but the body of the light I haven't changed, so that's good. I could probably still take a little bit more off this and take a bit more clearance, but I want to see if it squeaks because it's touching, this rubber's touching the rubber on the light, but not the plastic. So if it doesn't squeak, I'm not going to worry about it, but yeah, looks pretty good. Back from my journeys, I've had the intercooler pipe welded up now to suit from the turbo down. So that's the part that goes on the outlet of the compressor. And then I'll have a flex joint, or not a flex joint, but a silicon elbow here, onto here, and connect it up to the intercooler underneath there. So thank you, Tim, for doing that. You've done an amazing job. For someone who isn't a qualified welder, he's certainly knocked that out. It's bloody awesome. So I'm going to fit it up now and see how it all. We'll see how well my cuts, or how accurate my cuts were, and how close it is now. How's this? Fits an absolute treat. Lighting's really hard under the car, but see, comes down out of the turbo into a 90, snug around off the body there. It's got about 15mm clearance everywhere, and the air filter will come straight down that gap, which I'll put on next. But yeah, got to do those clamps up first. Really, really good, perfect fit. But thank you again, Tim. Air filter and everything installed for the final time, hopefully. All fits nicely, nothing seems to be rubbing, so that's good. I can tick that job off. Now I'm going to move on to the next one. I need to wrap this temperature sensor cable that I've put in. That's just to feed the dash cluster, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It's got its own earth because I forgot to run an earth down that loom and I don't want to unwrap it. Again, it doesn't matter, just got to wrap that up, make it a bit neater. I've put in these 2 fittings for water and air to go through the firewall. I just need to put a zippy on those and just tighten them up so they don't move. And I need to pull this plug apart and just retension the pin because I think it's loose like the other side was, but not as bad. So I'll do those jobs now. That's a bit neater now. I've just put a DTM 2-pin plug here. So that will go to my Boost T solenoid doodad thing when I get one, because that's going to live around here in between these hoses, so that way I can just easily disconnect it with the turbo if I need to. Should be nice and neat. I've tightened up those fittings over there, they're good. Now the coil plugs. Okay, coil plugs all done. Tightened up those pins, gave it an idle and just jiggled the plug, and there's no difference to idle quality now, so that's fixed up that problem. I've just pulled the map sensor from in that bundle of shit behind the engine, and I'm just going to swap that over. So the other one over here, your Raceworks 2-bar, so I'll plug that in and then change the calibration and the tune. Right, that was more of a struggle than I thought it would be. I forgot that when you get a 2-bar map sensor, it's got the clips on both sides, but it doesn't fit, so you actually have to chop them off this side. So those are the clips there. I've chopped off the 2-bar map, so it actually now fits in the hole. And I've gone into the tune calibration. And I have changed the relevant field, which is this one here, C6301, from roughly 94 to roughly 196 or 197, and that should show atmospheric pressure in the scan tool now when the engine's off. So I'll just fire that up now and see if it reads correctly. Well, there we have it. So map, intake, manifold absolute pressure, roughly 100 kPa, which is pretty much on the money for my elevation. And that's what it was before, so that's all working. It should just fire up and run like normal. Unexpected setback, the speedo converter box has been removed. It had all the makings of being the perfect solution, however made a mistake earlier in the build some years ago and had forgotten all about it. The tone ring was removed from the diff when the LS2 was changed, so everything was wired up correctly, but I wasn't getting a signal. So I connected up the wires coming from the speed sensor in the diff, and there was no pulsing. Then I stuck my finger in the hole, only to find a groove where the ring should be, that it isn't. So that's going to be way too much work now to fix. So I'm moving on to another option, which is using the computer to send the signal through. So according to the wiring diagram, pin 50 on the green connector is a configurable speedo output. So I'm going to decap this one, pin 50 is in here somewhere. I'm going to run in the appropriate coloured wire, just because I can. The wiring diagram says it's dark green with a white stripe. I happen to have one, so that's what I'm going to use. And that should feed the speedo. So I'll have to work out how many pulses it needs, but it should work. I'm going to do that now. All connected back up again. Cluster back in. Let's fire it up and see if it works. That all works beautifully, as we saw. I'm going to finish putting this dash back together now, because there's nothing else I need to work on in here. So I'm pretty pleased with my efforts. I thought I'd show this off, see if anyone else is as interested in it as I am. I wanted to replace this shift knob with one that looks more genuine to the car. This is just the one that came with the 4L80 shifter that bolts onto the transmission. It had a 5/8 bolt, which was extremely hard to find in Australia, so I couldn't find one. So instead I found a bit of 16mm tube, spun it down on a lathe and cut a thread into it, then welded it onto what was left of a Volvo 240 shift rod. So I cut that off here and welded it onto that, drilled it out the center so the button can go down the thing. The next challenge was on the 240 handle. The button itself is retained by a split pin and a cam that goes, so that pin there goes down the center, and on the end of that is that little cam with a split pin that stops the button, which is spring loaded, from shooting back out the top. I don't have that luxury anymore because obviously I need to actually screw that into the base. So instead what I did, and I practiced on this one, was I drilled out the guts of it and I tapped that to an M4 thread, and then I put a screw with a big washer on the inside, which you probably can't see, but it's in there, which now allows the spring to detent properly and not pop up too high. So now all I'll do is I'll screw that in place of where the standard shifter went, set the stop, which sets the depth and to make sure the handle's actually straight at the end, and then I'll just chop down the shift rod that sits usually inside this to suit that, and I should have a working shifter with the button on the side for, I don't know, whatever I use it for. Something. I'm just going to leave it there for now because I'm sure I'll think of something cool to use that for. But yeah, that should look much more standard 240. Back home from a successful test drive. Done maybe 100 kilometers. My fix for the power steering is all good. Intercooler pipes don't seem to be knocking around or banging, and it's much quieter with it all hooked up properly. Wiring fix for the coil packs is much better. It idles much smoother. Idles quite nicely actually. Seems to sound alright under throttle, but the problem with the transmission remains. So I have a problem where it doesn't seem to change into second. It seems to go from first to third, and it's more apparent that there's a problem with second gear now that under a powered downshift, which I haven't had sort of an opportunity to do until recently, powered downshift, when it tries to select second, it just gets neutral. So there's definitely a problem there, and next step is going to be what I really don't want to do, and that's pulling that transmission out again, put it back on this stand and stripping it all down to nothing to work out what part I've assembled incorrectly. So that'll be the next video. Hopefully there's still some viewers hanging around for that. I don't know how much detail I'll go into on the next video. It'll probably just be me drinking a lot of beer and yelling at the camera. But we'll see. Alright, stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully you enjoy what you've seen so far.